Will Freeman ran for South Carolina House District 110 2 years ago, and now he's trying again 2 years later. In this edition of Quintez Close-Ups, I sit down with Will one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintez Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Mr. Will Freeman, it's so good to see you.
I've seen you again. I think I saw you this past Wednesday and yesterday too.
Exactly right, exactly right. Tell me and catch me up about what's going on with you.
Oh, well, I'm currently running for South Carolina House of Representatives District 110. I'm going for that seat again. Other than that, let's see, I work at the College of Charleston,
right.
Which I'm an alumnus of. But I think it was time to make another run again because I feel that we need some more vocal and ardent representation for Mount Pleasant and Charleston, especially dealing with some of the big issues we're having to deal with right now, such as VC Summer and ethics reform.
What does that representation look like in your mind?
That representation is multifaceted. And, part of it is constituent services, which I would view as one, a consistent communication, especially when sessions, when State House is in session, with your voters. You know, that means meeting them with them, you know, weekly, giving them an update, but also getting their feedback for it, so you can go back the next week during session and go, well, this is directly what I'm hearing from my constituents. That's one part of it, and we definitely need more on-the-ground constituent services in that respect. But also, being a representative, you know, trying to find solutions for some of these problems, putting some of these solutions forward. Some of these solutions aren't that complicated. They've been tried. I mean, for example, consumer choice in utilities is one of my solutions for dealing with the VC Summer issue, so it doesn't happen again. It's going to lower our power bills, put the power back in the hands of the consumer, because right now the only person they have to turn their lights on is SCE&G. Where in states like Texas, they can choose from dozens of different plans with different providers that have lower rates. So it's putting forward ideas, and also, you know, having the service side of the public servant stuff being more active.
Yeah, and obviously William Cogswell represents House District 110. What kind of feedback are you getting from him?
None. And I think that's part of the problem. It seems like he's not taking a very, at least, visible role in terms of advocating for his constituents. I mean, I'm sure he's there sitting there voting. I know he is. I mean, you can look at the vote totals. I know he's there voting. I mean, but is he making a loud enough noise to go, listen, my constituents here are paying 18% more on their power bills. You know, he's not making enough of. He's not really, you know, being the vocal representative you're going to need for these issues, especially to get real change, the stuff that this state needs, through in a serious way.
What does real change look like in your mind?
Real change in my mind looks like, well, for starters, ethics reform is going to be the biggest thing for me of real change in the state, because a lot of the issues all tie back into ethics issues with the state and with our representatives and senators. Part of that is an independent ethics commission, because the House and Senate clearly, as we've seen with the Pasco investigation, cannot govern themselves properly. And part of that is, for me, is no sweetheart deals for representatives who violate the state's trust, who violate the people of the state's trust. Mandatory jail time for senators and representatives who have serious ethics violations. And that means no probation. I think you should spend some time in a concrete jail getting 3 hots in a cot to think about what you did and the trust you violated that the people of South Carolina put in you.
And many years ago, when you talked with the Mutual News, this was 2 years ago, you basically said this quote, and at the time you were also running for House District 110. You said this quote, "I'm running because the people of Charleston and Mount Pleasant need someone who isn't a lawyer or from a political family to represent them. They need someone who understands what is it like to live paycheck to paycheck. They need someone who will be listening to people of Charleston and Mount Pleasant." So what do you know about living paycheck to paycheck?
Oh, I know a lot about living paycheck to paycheck. I've never not had a job, but let's just say some of those jobs weren't nice. I've worked as a dishwasher. I worked as a bouncer. Actually, when I started that run last time, I was still working as a bouncer. And let me tell you, there's many a time where I got my paycheck and then immediately turned around and go, well, there all it goes to, you know, rent, bills, everything else, and trying to live off ramen, you know. So I mean, I know what it is to work two jobs to get all the ends meet. I know what it is to just feel utterly tired, but you're still having to go to that second job because you got bills to pay and you got to be able to feed yourself and put a roof over your head. And I mean, and the other part of that quote was referencing is that I'm trying to basically you need people with who heads are more common sense and try to feel common sense solutions in Columbia. And when I was referencing the political families, that's because during that race, there was someone else running whose father had just recently been in the State House and had to leave. So I kind of don't like political dynasties either. That's why I'm kind of for term limits. I feel that would be a good idea for turnover, but back to the paycheck issue, trust me, I know what it is to work with my hands and get down to the nitty-gritty when I have to.
And let me go back to the issues, because just 2 years ago you talked about wanting to fix roads, but thinks that with a $766 million budget surplus and recurring funds, there's no need for gas tax hikes. What has changed your mind about that?
Not much, really. It's just I think the issue here is we have to change the structure of the SCDOT, even with that surplus I was referencing, because actually Senator Davis from Buford made a good point. It's like no matter how much water you pour in a bucket, if there's a hole at the bottom of that bucket, then it's not going to ever fill up. And that's the same thing we have with SCDOT. If we have it where the money's not going to the projects that need to be going towards and gets stuck up in politically advantageous projects such as the Pampleville Highway in Florence County, then they're not going to get the real repairs and infrastructure improvements we need, especially here in the Low Country, desperately.
If you were to be elected House Representative for District 110, who would you work with as far as getting a South Carolina Fair Tax Act passed?
I mean, I would definitely try to work. Obviously, be working with more of the conservative elements within the House to try to get that passed. But I feel also, I mean, people who are representing districts that, on average, have lower income people, representing lower income people, because the fair tax, the beauty of it is it has a prebate. Unlike the income tax, which is currently getting taken out of poor people's paychecks, has prebate, so that way they're not being taxed on necessities, and also spreads out the tax base so it lowers the effective rate that citizens will be paying. So it puts more money in working people's pockets.
Let me move from those other issues to offshore drilling. As you know, that's been a hot topic here along the coast of South Carolina. Where are you with this discussion?
I'm generally opposed to offshore drilling. I don't think we need to threaten the beautiful and priceless environment down here, our beautiful marshlands and beaches, not to mention our $1 billion tourist industry. But my main reservation about it is we don't have the infrastructure to support the onshore operations that would be required for bringing offshore drilling down here off the coast of South Carolina. I mean, we don't have the infrastructure for our current needs. So we have to get those issues fixed before you even have a conversation about environmental impacts or impacts to our tourist economy. We have to get some of those discussions taken care of first.
And there are a lot of other issues. When I say gun reform, you say?
I would be more specific, because gun reform in terms of purchasing, gun reform in terms of what types of weapons, I mean, gun reform in terms of who can buy a gun or what kind of databases or technological issue,
You are running for the House of Representatives. You know those are the issues right now.
So technological issues, yes. Yeah, no, I mean, gun reform, I think, for me, is one that we have to make sure that all available information that would be pertinent in an FBI background check should be available to be used in an FBI background check. So if someone had a history of mental health issues or issues of violent crime, I mean, I feel that would probably preclude them from having a weapon if they've shown a history of either being mentally unstable or probably going to use it for the wrong reasons. I'm not going to support trying to ban any particular weapon or style of weapon. I mean, it's not, criminals don't care what the law says. They're gonna harm someone one way or the other. So that's what I think with gun reform. I think there's some technology fixes that aren't that controversial that can be done that would have a great impact and probably prevent some of the shootings we've had recently in this country.
When I say metal detectors in South Carolina, you say?
Schools?
When I say armed officers in South Carolina schools, you say?
SRO officers. I had when I went to high school up in Greenville, South Carolina, where I'm from, we had an SRO officer. So I see no problem with that at all. I just want to make sure, we have the funding for it.
When I say parity marriage, you say?
That is a bullcrap issue. That is a bullcrap issue that's distracting from the real issues we're having to face in the state. And I don't like it when representatives are trying to score cheap political points for their next election campaign with wedge issues that aren't actually going to help their constituents. That whole bill, to me, is a waste of South Carolina House of Representatives and South Carolina State Senate's time.
Will Freeman, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.